Imagine, just for a moment, that the fortune you've been searching for your entire life has been sitting quietly in a dusty jar on your dresser. Imagine opening that jar, sifting through the forgotten pennies of decades past, and suddenly realizing one of them could be worth enough money to change everything, enough to buy a house, pay off every debt, or even retire early. Sounds like a dream, doesn't it? But what if I told you that dream could be hiding in the form of a single, unassuming 1942 wheat penny? A coin so small and ordinary that millions of Americans have overlooked it, yet in top condition it has fetched reported market sales as high as $822,000. Yes, you heard that right. A coin that cost just 1 cent to spend could be worth nearly $1 million today. And if that doesn't make you want to start digging through every coffee can of coins in your house, nothing will. Now, before you rush off to the nearest coin jar, let's slow down and uncover the story of this mysterious treasure. Because this is not just about old copper and wheat stalks. This is about history, rarity, and the razor-thin line between a penny that's worth exactly 1 cent, and one that could make you rich beyond your imagination. Let's begin with the backdrop. The year was 1942. America had just entered World War II. Factories were converting to war production. Young men were enlisting by the thousands, and every single resource from rubber to tin to copper was being rationed for the war effort. The humble penny, made primarily of copper, suddenly found itself at the center of an unexpected struggle. Copper was needed for bullets, shell casings, and wiring, not spare change. And so, the US Mint began experimenting with alternatives, including steel-coated coins that would appear the very next year, in 1943, but 1942 was the transitional year, the calm before the storm. And it was in this moment that the Lincoln wheat cent, bearing no mint mark when struck at the Philadelphia Mint, quietly became one of the most intriguing coins in American history. At first glance, the 1942 wheat penny looks ordinary. Abraham Lincoln's familiar profile on the obverse, wheat stalks framing the words 1 cent on the reverse, nothing flashy, nothing unusual. And that is exactly what makes it so deceptive. Because hidden among the millions of pennies minted that year are survivors so pristine, so untouched by the hands of time, that they have become numismatic legends. Here's where things get fascinating. The vast majority of 1942 pennies are worth maybe a few cents in circulated condition. You could find one in your pocket change and shrug it off without a second thought. But in the rarest, highest grades, coins preserved with flawless surfaces, razor-sharp details, and no blemishes whatsoever, the value skyrockets. How high? Well, in 2016, one such coin sold at auction for an astonishing $822,000. Yes, a penny sold for more than most luxury homes in America. Now, you might be wondering, why would anyone pay that much for a penny? The answer lies in a mix of rarity, condition, and the feverish passion of collectors. Think of it this way. Anyone can own a 1942 penny, but only a handful of people on Earth can own a perfect gem quality 1942, no mint mark wheat cent, and when wealthy collectors compete for such a prize, the bidding war can push prices into the stratosphere. Here's the twist that keeps things exciting. Not all rare 1942 wheat cents are hidden in museums or locked away in private vaults. They still surface. People find them in inherited coin collections, in old rolls purchased decades ago, even in flea market jars sold for a few dollars. The dream of discovering one is alive and well. And that dream has fueled countless treasure hunters who spend evenings hunched over magnifying glasses, searching every date, every mint mark, every tiny detail. So the question becomes, how can you, right now, separate the pennies worth a cent from the pennies worth a fortune? The key lies in knowing exactly what to look for. First, you'll want to check the date and mint mark. A 1942 penny without a mint mark means it was struck in Philadelphia. That's your starting point. Next, look at the condition. Is the coin worn smooth, or does it still have sharp detail in Lincoln's hair and the wheat stalks? Are there scratches, spots, or discolorations? or does it shine with original luster? The closer it is to perfect, the more valuable it becomes. But there's more. Certain errors and varieties can make a 1942 penny even more valuable. For instance, doubled dies, where the design appears slightly doubled due to a mistake during minting, are highly sought after. Misstrikes, off-center coins, or unusual coloration from experimental alloy testing can also command extraordinary prices. These are the kinds of pennies that keep collectors awake at night. Now, let me pause here for a quick reality check. Most of the 1942 wheat cents you'll encounter are not going to make you rich. They might be worth 10 cents, maybe a few dollars in decent condition. That's the truth. But, and this is a massive but, the tiny percentage of coins in near perfect condition or carrying a rare error can completely change your life. And that's where the excitement comes from. You're not digging for guaranteed gold. You're digging for the possibility of a once-in-a-lifetime find. It's a bit like buying a lottery ticket, except the ticket has been hiding in your pocket. Change for decades, and the odds, while slim, are much better than you think. Let me ask you, how many times have you tossed a penny aside, thinking it was worthless? How many times have you ignored that jar of change in the back of your closet? What if your fortune is already in your possession, waiting for you to look closer? Imagine the regret of selling a jar of pennies at a garage sale, only to learn one of them was worth hundreds of thousands of dollars. That's the kind of fear that makes collectors double-check every coin, every time. And here's the kicker. Once word spreads that certain pennies have sold for nearly $1 million, demand only grows. People who never cared about coins suddenly start searching. Competition heats up, and values continue to climb. In other words, the longer you wait, the harder it may become to find these treasures in the wild. So, what should you do if you think you've found a rare 1942 wheat penny? First, handle it carefully. Don't clean it, don't polish it, and definitely don't rub it between your fingers. Cleaning can destroy value instantly. Next, consider having it graded by a professional service like PCGS or NGC. These organizations authenticate and assign a numerical grade to your coin. And a certified grade can make the difference between selling for a few $100s and selling for hundreds of thousands. Think of grading as the difference between an unsigned painting and one verified as an authentic Picasso. The coin itself hasn't changed, but the trust and certainty skyrocket the value. And once your coin is certified, the world of possibilities opens up. Private collectors, major auction houses, even museums may line up for a chance to acquire it. That's when you'll realize you're not just holding a penny, you're holding a piece of American history, wrapped in copper, shaped by war, and destined for legend. Now, as we reach the climax of this story, let me leave you with this thought: every great fortune has a beginning. Sometimes it's an idea, sometimes it's an invention, and sometimes it's as simple as a coin in your pocket. The 1942 wheat penny, no mint mark, is more than just money. It's a symbol of opportunity. It's proof that treasure still exists in plain sight, waiting for someone with sharp eyes and a bit of luck to discover it. So tonight, when the world quiets down and you're alone with your thoughts, grab that jar of coins, pour them out, one by one, check the dates. Look for 1942, hold each penny to the light, because while most people will never notice, you now know the secret, and knowledge is the first step toward fortune. Will you be the one who finds the next $822,000 penny? Or will you let your chance slip away, lost among the pennies of everyday life? The choice, as always, is in your hands. Everyday Americans have overlooked this unassuming coin for decades. It's small, it's copper, and most people pass it by without a second thought. Yet, buried in jars of spare change, tucked away in old dresser drawers, or forgotten in inherited collections, this penny could hold the key to unimaginable wealth. If you've ever wondered whether a simple coin could change your destiny, keep listening, because this story might just end with you racing to check your own collection. The year was 1944. The United States was still entrenched in the fires of World War II, Resources were scarce, metals were rationed, and even the smallest details of American life were shaped by the war effort. Just 1 year earlier, in 1943, pennies weren't copper at all. They were made of steel, coated in zinc, because copper was desperately needed for ammunition and military equipment. That single shift created some of the most famous and rarest coins in US history, the 1943 copper pennies. But when the war turned again in 1944, copper returned to the cent. At least, that was the plan. Here's where the story takes a shocking twist. During that transition, something unexpected happened. A few leftover steel planchettes from 1943, those blank metal discs meant for pennies, slipped through the cracks at the mint. Instead of copper, a tiny number of 1944 pennies were struck on steel. To the untrained eye, they might look like any other ordinary penny, just slightly off in color. But in reality, they are the holy grail of American coins. Collectors have spent decades hunting them, and when they surface, the market goes wild. One of these steel-struck 1944 wheat pennies sold for a staggering $408,000 at auction. Another example pushed the record even higher, topping $814,000. Yes, you heard that Rita, single penny, a coin worth just 1 cent at face value, has sold for nearly $1 million. And experts speculate that under the perfect storm of rarity, condition, and collector demand, it could even break into the millions. Now, you might be thinking, that's fascinating, but how does this affect me? The answer could be life-changing, because these coins aren't locked away in museums. They're out there, floating in private hands, occasionally surfacing in estate sales, coin jars, or even change machines. Which begs the question, could one of them already be in your possession? Let's pause for a moment and imagine this. You're sorting through a jar of coins, maybe one your parents or grandparents left behind. You spot a wheat penny, dated 1944. You feel a slight thrill after all. Wheat pennies are old and collectible. But then you notice something strange. Instead of the warm reddish-brown of copper, it shines with a silvery, steel-like appearance. Could it be? Could you be holding a piece of American history worth more than your car, your house, maybe your entire retirement fund? This is where condition comes into play. Coin collectors live and breathe by grading systems, and the difference between a well-worn penny and one in pristine, uncirculated condition is massive. That $814,000 sale, it wasn't for a scratched-up pocket piece. It was for a coin preserved in nearly flawless quality, as though it had just rolled off the mint's press. The rarity of the 1944 steel penny is already astronomical, but finding one in top condition transforms it into a true legend. But here's the kicker. Not all 1944 pennies are made equal. Most are copper, and while they may only be worth a few cents to a couple of dollars depending on where, certain errors, doubled dies, or exceptionally high grades can fetch far more. Some copper examples in mint state condition can command hundreds, or even thousands of dollars. So don't make the mistake of dismissing them too quickly. Every 1944 penny deserves a second look. Now, let's inject a little suspense. Imagine this, you're watching this video, and somewhere in your home, tucked in a forgotten drawer, lies a 1944 wheat penny. It's been sitting there for decades, ignored, overlooked, collecting dust. Right now, that coin could be the difference between financial struggle and financial freedom. Isn't it worth checking? Isn't it worth just a few minutes of curiosity? That could lead to life-altering discovery. Here's where the urgency comes in. The market for rare coins is booming, but like all collectibles, it ebbs and flows. Today, demand for rare wheat pennies is sky-high, with baby boomers, Gen X collectors, and even younger investors flooding into the market. Prices are climbing, auction houses are buzzing, and competition is fierce. But markets don't stay hot forever. The opportunity to capitalize on these record-breaking values may not last a lifetime. If you're ever going to act, the time is now. And don't think you need to be an expert to begin. Identifying whether you have a rare 1944 penny is surprisingly simple. Step 1. Look at the date. Step 2. Check the mint mark. A no mint mark coin was struck in Philadelphia. Step 3. Test the metal. If it sticks to a magnet, you might just have a 1944 steel penny, one of the rarest coins in US history. That quick 3-step process could be the gateway to unimaginable wealth. Of course, not every odd-looking penny will make you rich. That's where reputable coin dealers and grading services come in. Professional grading by organizations like PCGS or NGC can authenticate your coin and place it into the official registry of rare treasures. Without that certification, even a legitimate steel penny won't reach its maximum potential at auction. So let me ask you, when was the last time you looked at your pennies? How many times have you emptied your pockets, thrown coins in a jar, and thought, it's just a penny? What if one of those pennies could pay off your mortgage, send your kids to college, or fund the retirement you've dreamed of? The fear of missing out here is real, because countless people have unknowingly held fortunes in their hands and let them slip away. Picture the regret of someone who spent a rare 1944 steel penny at a gas station 50 years ago. They got a stick of gum. Today, that same coin could buy them a luxury car. That's not just bad luck, that's a heartbreaking reminder of how easily opportunity can vanish when we're not paying attention. But here's the good news. You're paying attention now, and knowledge is power. You now know the history, the rarity, the value, and the steps to check your own collection. You're no longer in the dark. The only question left is, will you act on this knowledge, or let it fade like so many others have before? Because make no mistake, the 1944 no mint mark wheat penny is more than a coin. It's a symbol of hidden wealth waiting to be uncovered. A reminder that extraordinary opportunities can be hiding in the most ordinary places. It's proof that sometimes, the smallest things carry the biggest rewards. So, as we close, I leave you with this thought. Tonight, when you get home, before you go to bed, take a moment to dig out that jar of coins, that dusty box of change, or that inherited collection you've ignored for years. Hold each 1944 penny up to the light. Test it, study it, and don't dismiss it. Because one coin, just one, could transform your future in ways you never imagined. And when you find it, when you hold that silvery 1944 steel wheat penny in your hand, remember this moment. Remember that you heard the story, that you took action, and that you didn't let opportunity pass you by. That's the kind of decision that separates those who dream from those who achieve. After all, what's the value of one penny? For most people, it's nothing. But for a lucky few, it's everything. Now the real question is, will it be you?
Have you ever held a penny in your hand and wondered if it might secretly be worth more than your car, your house, or even your entire retirement fund? What if I told you that one of the most ordinary-looking coins in America, the humble 1961 Lincoln cent, with a small D mint mark, has been reported in auctions to sell for astonishing amounts, with some stories pushing values as high as $977,000? Yes, you heard that right. A coin most people ignore at the bottom of a jar could, under the right circumstances, make someone an instant millionaire. Now, before you run to dump your change on the table, let's slow down. Because the story of the 1961 D penny is not just about copper and mint marks. It's about history, mistakes, human error, rarity, and the feverish chase collectors engage in when a seemingly common coin becomes a hidden treasure. And by the time we're done, you'll see why this coin has ignited both dreams and obsessions. Picture this. America, 1961. John F. Kennedy is in the White House. Optimism fills the air. And in Denver, Colorado, presses are striking Lincoln cents by the hundreds of millions. Over 1.7 billion pennies roll out that year from the Denver Mint alone. To the untrained eye, they all look the same. The profile of Lincoln. The wheat stalks replaced by the Lincoln Memorial just a few years earlier. Copper everywhere. Worth 1 cent, nothing special. Or so it seemed, but here's the twist. When billions of coins are minted, even the tiniest imperfections can transform ordinary pocket change into something extraordinary. The wrong die used, a doubled image. a faint mint mark misplaced, a strike that produces something no one intended but everyone suddenly wants. Collectors call them errors, but in the marketplace, errors become miracles. The 1961 D. Lincoln cent has exactly that kind of story. In high grades, meaning coins that were never circulated, coins that never saw the inside of a cash register or the bottom of a sock drawer, these cents can soar in value. Some pristine examples graded at the highest levels have sold for eye-watering sums, in some cases reaching well into six figures. Reports even point to one hammer price approaching $975, setting collectors' hearts racing. Imagine the fear of letting one of these coins slip through your hands without knowing its value. Imagine the excitement of realizing you might have one. Now let's pause for a second. You might be thinking, how could such a small piece of metal be worth nearly $1 million? Isn't it still just a penny? And that's the psychological trap. Because while the face value never changes, the collectible value is driven by scarcity, demand, and condition. In the world of coins, rarity is king and condition is queen. Together they can turn copper into gold. So what makes a 1961 D cent so special? First, it's the sheer difficulty of finding one in perfect condition. Most were spent, handled, scratched, dinged. But if a coin escaped circulation and was preserved in flawless mint state quality, we're talking about a grade of MS-67 or higher, suddenly you have something few others on Earth possess. Fewer still survive today in that condition. Scarcity skyrockets. Prices explode. Second, there are varieties and errors. Double dies, repunched mint marks, off-center strikes. Imagine spotting a tiny doubling on the date or mint mark with a magnifying glass. To most people, it's invisible. To collectors, it's a jackpot. The irony is that millions of people have handled these coins for decades, never realizing the microscopic quirks that could turn their penny into a treasure chest. And here's a chilling thought. How many of these coins were tossed back into circulation? Spent on bubblegum, lost in a parking lot, or dropped between couch cushions? Each one a potential fortune gone forever. That's the kind of fear that keeps collectors awake at night, and the kind of urgency that makes ordinary people suddenly dig through jars of change with trembling hands. Now let's build the suspense even higher. Suppose you find a 1961 D penny in your possession. What should you do? First, don't clean it. Ever. Cleaning coins is like repainting the Mona Lisa. It destroys value. Next, check the condition. Is it shiny, free of scratches with crisp detail? Then check for varieties. Look closely at the date, at the D mint mark. Any sign of doubling or repunching could mean thousands more in value. If you believe you have something extraordinary, the next step is professional grading. Reputable services like PCGS or NGC encapsulate coins in tamper-proof holders and assign grades. That grade is the key that unlocks serious market value. Without it, you're just another person claiming to have a rare coin. With it, you're holding a verifiable asset that collectors will fight for. But here's where it gets thrilling. Once word gets out, the market can turn into a feeding frenzy. Collectors with deep pockets, investors looking for alternative assets, even everyday enthusiasts competing on auction sites. Bidding wars erupt. Prices soar. And suddenly, a 1-cent coin becomes a life-changing windfall. Let me ask you this. How many pennies have you ignored in your lifetime? How many times have you bent down, seen a copper coin on the ground, and thought, not worth the effort? What if that single penny was the one that could have paid off your mortgage? Suddenly picking up a coin doesn't seem so silly anymore, does it? Of course, humor me for a moment. Because if you start scanning every penny like Sherlock Holmes, your friends might think you've lost your mind. But when you're holding a coin that could fetch 6 figures, who's really laughing? The story of the 1961 D penny is ultimately a story about possibility. It reminds us that treasure doesn't always lie buried in the ocean or locked in a vault. Sometimes it jingles in our pockets. Sometimes it hides in plain sight. And sometimes the most unassuming objects carry the greatest potential. But let's not sugarcoat it. The odds of finding $1 million penny are slim. Not impossible, but slim. And that's exactly what creates the excitement. If it were easy, no one would care. But the hunt, the idea that lightning could strike, that an overlooked coin could rewrite your financial future, that's what keeps people searching. It's the same thrill that drives gold prospectors, treasure hunters, and lottery players. Only in this case, the gold just happens to be copper. So here we are, at the climax of our journey. You now know the truth about the 1961 D. Lincoln cent. Billions were made, but only a handful in pristine condition with rare errors hold the power to shock the market. Some have sold for thousands, others for hundreds of thousands. And yes, reports have reached as high as $977,000 for the right coin at the right time. That's not a fantasy. That's a documented reality. The question is, will you be the one to find it? Will you check your coin jars, your old piggy banks, the dusty rolls in your attic? Or will you let the possibility slip by, assuming pennies are worthless? Because here's the final twist. Every great fortune found in coins was discovered by someone who bothered to look. Someone who cared enough to take a second glance. Someone who believed that even a penny could hold a secret. And maybe, just maybe, the next great discovery won't be in a museum or at an auction. Maybe it's in your hand right now, waiting for you to recognize its value. So don't ignore the pennies. Don't underestimate them. Because one day, you might realize that the smallest coin in your pocket could unlock the biggest surprise of your life. Imagine reaching into your pocket for a handful of loose change, the same dull copper coins you've seen all your life, only to discover that one of them could be worth as much as a mansion in the suburbs. Or a luxury yacht. Now here's the kicker. People just like you have already found these hidden treasures, and in some cases, they've sold for nearly $1 million. That's right. A simple 1-cent coin, the 1994 no-mint mark Lincoln penny, has been reported to bring staggering sums on the open market. One specimen even reached a jaw-dropping $968,000 when it surfaced in pristine condition. So how on earth does a penny, a coin that most of us ignore, lose in the couch cushions or leave at the bottom of a jar, end up carrying the price tag of a luxury home? The story is as fascinating as it is urgent, because these coins are still out there, and someone, maybe even you, could be holding one without realizing it. To understand why this particular penny matters, let's step back for a moment. In 1994, millions of Lincoln cents rolled out of the U.S. Mint, stamped with the familiar image of Abraham Lincoln on the obverse and the Lincoln Memorial on the reverse. Nothing unusual there. But among the tidal wave of coins produced, a few slipped through with a crucial anomaly. No mint mark. Normally, Lincoln cents from Philadelphia carried no mint mark by tradition, but in this case, the absence signaled something very different. It pointed to a rare variety, a misstep that turned an everyday coin into an elite collector's prize. The rarity is so extreme that only a tiny fraction of the 1994 production run qualifies, which is why collectors are willing to pay mind-bending sums for high-grade examples. Now, let's be clear. Most 1994 pennies you find in circulation will be worth exactly what they say, 1 cent. Some, in decent condition, might fetch a few dollars if they're shiny enough. But the no mint mark variety in top-notch condition? That's the one that has shocked auction houses and set collectors buzzing. When you think about the fact that one of these coins sold for nearly $1 million, it forces you to ask, could there be another one hiding in plain sight? Could one be sitting in your desk drawer, quietly waiting to change your life? Imagine the fear of tossing one into a Coinstar machine or handing it over as change for a coffee, never realizing you just let go of a fortune. That's the nightmare scenario. And here's the exciting flip side. The thrill of realizing that the coin you've overlooked for decades could be your ticket to financial freedom. It's like a modern treasure hunt, and the prize isn't buried in the ground. It's jingling in your pocket. You might wonder, why do collectors care so much? Why would anyone, no matter how wealthy, pay close to $1 million for a penny? The answer is rooted in rarity, condition, and history. Rare coins become objects of desire because they represent mistakes that were never meant to exist. They're artifacts of imperfection in a system designed for uniformity. And when such an artifact survives in immaculate condition, untouched, uncirculated, preserved as though time stood still, it becomes something more than a coin. It becomes a trophy. Wealthy collectors aren't just buying copper. They're buying a story, a legend they can hold in their hand, a symbol of status that few others in the world will ever own. And here's where things get even more dramatic. The price of rare pennies isn't static. It fluctuates with demand, with the whims of collectors and with the sheer excitement that fuels bidding wars at major auctions. Today's $50,000 coin can become tomorrow's $500,000 headline. The market has proven this time and again, which is why experts emphasize the time to check your change is now, not later. Every year that passes, the number of pristine 1994 no-mint-mark pennies shrinks. Coins get lost, damaged, or degraded. Survival is the enemy, and scarcity only increases value. Think about it this way. In the same way baseball cards or classic cars skyrocket in value as they age and become harder to find, so too do rare coins. And unlike cars or collectibles that take up space in a garage, a coin can fit neatly in the palm of your hand. Portable wealth, pure and simple. But here's the suspenseful twist. Most people don't even know what to look for. They assume all pennies are the same, that a cent is just a cent. That ignorance is exactly what allows treasures to slip through unnoticed. So let's spell it out. If you're holding a 1994 penny, pay attention to two things: condition and detail. A coin that's been rattling around in change for years won't command the same price as one that looks crisp, sharp, and gleaming, as if it just left the mint yesterday. Collectors grade coins on a meticulous scale, from good all the way up to mint state 70, the holy grail of perfection. The higher the grade, the higher the value. That $968,000 sale wasn't for an ordinary beat-up penny. It was for one that experts considered nearly flawless. So ask yourself, when was the last time you really looked at your change? When was the last time you checked the date on a penny before tossing it aside? What if right now, your coin jar holds the very key to a windfall you've been waiting for your entire life? And here's where it gets even more thrilling. This isn't some distant legend or folklore about pirate treasure. This is real modern money. People have already cashed in. It has happened before, and it can happen again. That's why savvy collectors, hobbyists, and even casual treasure hunters scour rolls of coins from the bank, hoping to stumble on the next miracle find. And you don't need a metal detector or a secret map or years of expertise. You just need patience, curiosity, and the willingness to look closely. Now let's pause for a second. You might be thinking, sure, it's possible, but isn't this too good to be true? A fair question. But here's the proof. Rare pennies consistently make headlines at major coin auctions. Reports of six-figure and even seven-figure sales aren't fairy tales. They're documented market transactions, verified by experts and celebrated by the collecting community. The money is real, the buyers are real, and the opportunity is real. The only uncertainty is whether you'll recognize it when it's in your hands. Of course, there's a humorous side to all of this, too. Imagine trying to explain to your friends that you can't meet for lunch because you're busy polishing pennies. They'll laugh until you show them the auction check with 6 zeros on it. Suddenly, you're not eccentric. You're brilliant, and maybe even rich. So let's bring this story to its climax. Right now, across America, countless 1994 pennies are sitting unnoticed in coffee cans, dresser drawers, and piggy banks. Every day, some of them vanish into circulation, their potential squandered, their chance at glory lost forever. But a few, a precious few, are destined to be discovered by someone alert, someone who knows what to look for, someone who refuses to dismiss the smallest coin in our currency as worthless. Could that person be you? Here's the ultimate takeaway. The 1994 no-mint-mark Lincoln penny is not just a coin. It's a reminder that fortune favors the curious. It's proof that wealth can hide in plain sight. It's the perfect symbol of opportunity disguised as ordinary. And if history has shown us anything, it's that those who act quickly, who pay attention, who dare to hope, those are the people who walk away with the rewards. So the next time you reach for a penny, don't roll your eyes and think it's just a cent. Instead, hold it up to the light, study it closely, and ask yourself the question that could change everything. Is this the one? Is this the penny that could rewrite my story? Because somewhere out there in someone's pocket, in someone's piggy bank, in someone's coin jar, the next $1 million penny is waiting. And who knows? The next headline about a life-changing discovery could have your name on it. After all, why not you?